Welcome back to the You Will Be Okay podcast. Today, I am so excited to welcome Andrea Owen to the show. Andrea is a powerhouse in the self-development world. She is a 4-time best-selling author, including with the book, How to Stop Feeling Like Shit, and she is the host of the wildly popular Make Some Noise podcast. Andrea has helped millions of women step into their power, stop playing small, and rewrite the stories that have been holding them back. What I love most about Andrea is her honesty. She doesn't just talk about confidence and resilience, she's lived it. She has overcome alcoholism, navigated infidelity in her first marriage, dealt with chronic anxiety, all while building an extraordinary career and inspiring women all over the world, myself included. This conversation was so inspiring. She is so insightful, and I can't wait for you to listen. Enjoy. Hi, Andrea, and welcome to the You'll Be Okay podcast.
Hi, Sabrina. It's so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to talk to you. You have no idea. When I was just trying to think about what we should talk about, I'm like, how do I narrow anything down with this woman? You are such a wealth of knowledge. You are a 4-time best-selling author, life coach, podcast host. What's your origin story? How did you get into the world of self-help?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny, not funny story. So I started out in the fitness industry. That's what I went to college for and loved the industry, still do. But I was interested in personal growth from a young age, but didn't really have anyone around me to support it. I was kind of like made fun of. Like I liked those accessories art. Do you remember those? Where it would be like a really nice photography and then a big word like perseverance or
Yes.
balance, harmony, and then a quote. And it was really cheesy from the 90s. And I loved those. And my friends would make fun of me about it. But all that to say, I learned about life coaching in the early 2000s and then knew that I needed to have some life experience before I ventured into that. And the universe thought that was hilarious and gave me that life experience. My first
Careful
husband
what
had
you
an
wish for.
affair, like got his girlfriend pregnant. I ended up dating basically a con man after that who was an addict and I didn't know. And so my whole life fell apart. And then that's really when I was like, okay, maybe it's me. Like maybe I need to change my own life. And then that's what I did. And I became a life coach in the process. So yeah, it took burning it all down to get here. And that was about 18 years ago that all that happened.
That's really interesting because I feel like life coaching was so not like what it is today back then.
Right.
I feel like it was very obscure back then. And this is already predating social media. So, what was like the moment where you felt like, you know what? I can really help people. Like I have that ability. When did you realize that?
So this was back in about 2007, maybe 2008 this was back in the glory days of blogging. So
Mm,
Blogspot, people
yeah.
had blogs. So I was blogging about my eating disorder and people started commenting and reading it. So this was the beginning of Twitter even and was starting to create a community. And I thought to myself, like, oh, I could help people just by telling my story.
Okay, so you started with helping, sharing your eating disorder experience. Women were commenting. How did it evolve from there? And when did you decide to take it to the podcasting world, which you're like a pioneer because 2013 is very early?
Yeah. Well, as I'm blogging, I was going through life coaching certification and, getting the skills and training I needed to do that. And then I started really just experimenting. I didn't know who my people were. I didn't know what my natural gifts and abilities were. So I was really kind of doing what marketing people tell us not to do. Like I was throwing spaghetti on the wall to see what
Yeah.
worked. That absolutely worked for me. And I still to this day think that that's a great way to figure things out. And then in 2012-ish, I decided to write a book, which became my first book, and knew that I really liked to talk. So I thought, well, instead of blogging, because I'm writing a book, I'm going to buy this $40 microphone and just start talking. And that's where the podcast was born. It was really just out of kind of necessity to keep in contact with my audience. And then 13 years later, like here I am.
That's so interesting. Wait, so was your first book Make Some Noise or what was
No,
it?
that was my third. So my first book was 52 Ways to Live a Kick-Ass Life. Then How to Stop Feeling Like SHIT. I don't know if I can curse on your
You can
show.
curse. Okay.
And that's the one that's been translated into many, many languages.
And
And
we're
my
going to
third
talk about that
one,
one. I love that title. The second I saw that, I was like, I need to read this.
I know, this was like 2015. That was, it was sort of new in terms of curse words and titles, but
Right.
and then Make Some Noise was my third book.
And tell me about Make Some Noise. Because when I first heard about you and your podcast is Make Some Noise, I'm like, this can mean so many things.
It
Why?
could.
What does that mean to you? Make some noise.
Because, you know, It was a slight pivot from my two previous titles, and but not really. Like, people who listen to my podcast knew what I was talking about. And I got to a point in my practice where all I realized that all of the coping mechanisms and behaviors that I had talked about and that women struggled with, that they came to me and, I read in their intake form, like the behaviors that they wanted to leave behind: the people pleasing, poor boundaries,
Mm.
perfectionism, overachieving, isolating, numbing out. They were common and universal, generally speaking, among my community. And I realized that all of these behaviors had something in common, and they were things that we had learned. And by we, I mean people who identify as women. We had learned as coping mechanisms that came from the society and culture that raised us. And so it was Make Some Noise was really about me talking about how to take a stand for certain things, and also unlearning all of the ways that we had been taught to do them. So it was an effort for me to encourage the reader not to blame themselves for their people pleasing tendencies, or, to blame themselves that they had gotten to a place where they leaned into control and perfectionism. And I was like, it's not you. It's your responsibility to change it, but it came from the culture that raised us. So in essence, like, telling people, like, you're playing by the rules, like you did everything right. And these coping mechanisms just aren't working for you anymore. So let's change them.
That's unbelievable. I love that.
Thank you.
So your first book is 52 Ways to Live a Kick-Ass Life, right? That was the title. And you had mentioned that leading up to that, your life like had burned to the ground. So how
100%.
did you learn 52 ways to live a kick-ass life? How do you go from like everything is horrendous, everything is
Mhm.
shit to how to live how did that happen?
Where did I get there?
Yeah,
So
like where'd you
I
get these
turned a
ideas?
corner for sure. Well, I think that, if I can sort of thank my DNA, like, I was born an optimist. I
One
tend
of
to
those.
lean that way no matter what. Like, when my whole life had burned down, like, I still had hope that I could change things. And truly, one of the biggest things that I learned from that experience of my first marriage falling apart the way that it did, and it ending the way that it did, it was traumatizing. It was incredibly dramatic. And then immediately getting into a relationship, which I probably shouldn't have, but looking
Mm.
back, I can see the pattern. I was 30, and two back to back incredibly intense and painful relationships. Coming out of that, as I mentioned before, I picked my head up and thought, okay, I'm the common denominator in both of these relationships. And I learned how to not blame myself completely for where I was. Like, my partners had done some pretty egregious things to me, but also I had ignored my intuition that told me both times. That told me the first time, don't marry him, and I did anyway. That told me on the first date with the next guy, like, something's up with this guy, but I'm not sure what it is. Stayed with him anyway. And so I had ignored my intuition and knew that that was part of the problem that I needed to figure out and do my own work on. But also, I had so much optimism and felt so much freedom knowing that I could change my own life. I was like, oh, wait a minute. You mean I don't have to rely on a man or a relationship to make me happy? I don't have to rely on the fact that, like, am I going to get married and have children to make me happy? Felt incredibly powerful to me, and hence what brought me and made me lean more into women's empowerment, because it was like I knew I had to spread the message of, yeah, your life might suck. Yeah, you might have a list of things that you want to change, and you actually have more power than you might think that you do. So that was really the message from 52 Ways to Live a Kick-Ass Life.
Yes. Yes. I say this all the time because I am someone who lived in victim land for a
Oh, me
very
too.
long time. Very long time. And I feel I really connect to you. I also struggled with eating disorders for a long time, and perfectionism and people pleasing and like just all the
Mhm.
things. And I was for so long was waiting for like circumstances to change and then I'll be happy. But until then, I'm just going to live in my land of misery and live in my land of it's not fair and it's not
Lame.
supposed to be this way. And I kind of thought with the passage of time, like I would wise up, I would grow out of it. And then when I was 29, I realized that wasn't happening at all. And then I did realize, you know what? Like, I am just going to act as if everything is going to be okay. I am going to like choose to see the good, which I'm the opposite of you. I was born a pessimist. Like maybe
Oh,
this
were
is
you?
you're born an optimist. I'm born a pessimist. And Instead, it's not easy. It's not natural for me to choose to see the good, to choose
Mhm.
to see what's good here. But when you start doing that, then you invite so much more goodness into your life. And what you said about we have more control over our lives than we realize, that is the biggest message. That's so
Yeah.
much what I talk about in my book, Detach, because so many of us just are at the mercy of our life circumstances. And we just feel like I need this guy to save me, or I need a certain amount of money in the bank, or I need this job opportunity. When really, it sounds sad, but it's empowering. No one's coming to save you. Not your parents, not your soulmate, not the perfect job, not the
Not
perfect
your
friend group.
rescue dog, like nobody.
Nobody. It's you. And that's a good thing because you have total control over yourself.
Yeah.
And that's amazing that you were able to realize that, like, even before all these coaches and everyone's talking about it on social media, and this became much more of like a mainstream concept.
Mhm.
And you just kind of cracked that on your own. That's very impressive.
Yeah, okay, so here's the interesting thing, and, like, one of the things that, like, I love about and I have it right here, about your book
Thank you.
is the title, and I know you lean into relationships, and one of the things that I've learned, and this actually has been more recent, is, yes, I realized early on that I had more control in my life than I thought I did, and I wanna say too, like, I have a lot of privilege in that. I have a lot of resources and had a strong support system and things like that. And then in 2016, my father passed away, and it was the first time I had ever experienced a loss like that. I'd never had anyone die that I was close to before that, and I was 41 at the time. So I got the word surrender tattooed on my arm in my own handwriting. And I thought at the time, and it was because of the grief. Like the grief was so insurmountable. I felt like it would swallow me whole. That was a moment, and the birth of one of my children. I realized what I'm experiencing is ancient and universal, and I don't have any control over this experience of, whether it's childbirth or this emotion of profound grief and sorrow. And not knowing, getting the word surrender tattooed on my arm, I was casting a spell, if you will. And it helped me over the last, 9 years almost, detach from outcomes and relationships. Now, this could probably be a whole conversation in and of itself, but really
Mhm.
the concept to me of surrendering is to allow life to unfold on life's terms. And that's not that I'm not proactive about certain things. Like I certainly am, but the lesson that I have learned is that whatever happens, whether, and like I've been in a new relationship for over a year, and it's like, it's been the best, most healthy relationship ever. I also know that this could end at any time from either him ending it, me ending it, or one of us dies. And I am unattached to that outcome, meaning anything about me or my worth or my future or anything. That is the biggest lesson I have learned in the 20 years that I have been doing personal growth.
That's it. That's exactly, what the book is about. And it took me
Mhm.
like over a decade in my life to realize, to distill it down to that one concept. So when I was writing this book, how it came to be was I have this group coaching course, and I'm like incapable of writing outlines. Anytime I try to outline a class, I just like I'm just writing all my thoughts down. So I end up with like 350 pages of notes. I'm like, I'll just turn this into a book. But it wasn't distilled down to one thing. It was just too, it worked great in a course, but like for a book, my publisher was like, this is like 20 books combined into.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm like, what is the over? And it took me a while to land on it. I'm like, it's detachment.
Mhm.
That's what it is. And that's everything you're describing.
I think it's a word that gets misconstrued
Yes.
too, like surrender, detachment, like I also call it hold loosely. Like it's just, yeah, that concept can be scary to people. And like, trust me, is it easy? Oh, I kicking and screaming all day long over here, but it's been the best lesson for me.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And people need to realize it's so empowering. I want to talk to you now about confidence and resilience, which
Mhm.
seems like you have a lot of. So many women, obviously, I'm sure you see this as well. Every woman pretty much who comes to me has no confidence, and they either feel like they're too much or not enough. How do you define confidence, and why do you think so many women, I would say beyond women, I would say just people
Yeah.
today are struggling so deeply with their confidence.
I think, oh, this is a whopper and one of my favorite questions.
Yeah.
Well, if you read any books on confidence, and I've read them, and the research all says pretty much the same thing, we gain confidence through experience. And I think that that people get that backwards. Like they think that they need to have confidence or learn confidence before they go into these experiences that they feel nervous about. And that's not how it works. And so the way I tell people is all you need is, 30 seconds of courage. Like the courage comes first, and then you gain experience. And then that's where you get the confidence. And what you're learning is that you are going to do the thing. And I'm not saying like the net's going to always appear. Like, girl, you gonna fall on your face eventually, for sure. But the confidence comes when you do it and you succeed, or you do it and it's messy and then you learn from it, or if you do the thing, you get the courage, you do the thing, and then you fail or fall on your face. And then that's what builds the resilience, which you also need for confidence. So again, like I'm whipping through it and it's super scary and you'll stumble through it. And I still find myself lacking confidence in certain areas of my life. I'm able to recognize it quickly now. So that is our culture, like that told us that from an early age. So what I ask people is, when is the youngest experience or furthest back experience that you can remember feeling that way, feeling either too much or not enough? For me, it's as a child. And then I have gone through psychedelic therapy and had a vision of me being in the womb, asking my family, like, are you sure there's room for me? So I'm like, I knew even when I was fetus that I was going to be the youngest child of 5 who had a lot, who was spirited and, just always trying to get someone's attention. And so I think that if you can go back and pinpoint to the best of your ability where it started, and then things like exercises and just really nurturing your inner child. Like I have a picture here on my desk of me when I was a little baby. I have a picture, I don't know if you can see it, of me as a senior in high school. And the reason that I do that is partly because I'm conceited, but partly mostly because like this work that I do when I sit here at this desk, whether I'm having an interview with you or writing a book or working with clients, it's for her. It's for that little girl that felt like she was too much. It's for that teenage girl that was just enraged because she didn't think anybody took her seriously because she was too much. And so I think if you can start there, start doing that kind of work, whether it's a therapist or a coach or even just reading books, that will help you get to that place of self-acceptance, truly, because that's what that is.
Yeah. And I also think that people need to realize that confidence is a muscle. It's not
Mhm.
something that you're just born with. And it comes with exercise, with putting yourself in these situations that are scary. And at its core, confidence is rooted in self trust. That's what it means. It means to trust yourself. How
Yep.
much, that's why I named my podcast, You Will Be Okay, because that was the thing I just kept saying to people. And that was the feeling that so many people were chasing, this feeling of like, am I going to be okay?
Yeah.
Problem is we outsource it to the externals, I need this guy to want me. I need to get this job because then that means I'm going to be okay. When we really need to root that from within.
Mhm.
And I guess like what I see is this not okayness, this feeling of like, I'm not okay. The fear also is such a large part of it. This fear of rejection more than anything,
Yeah.
especially with, my work is largely focused on dating and relationships. You don't really seem to have that though. So how did you conquer that? How are you, like, it seems like you have been, from what it sounds like from in the short time I've known you, you're just like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to start a blog,
Yeah.
I'm gonna write a book. Like, where does it come from? How are you?
And some of it, to be fair, is natural. Like
Yeah.
I was using the term delusional confidence way before it was trending on TikTok. Like truly, when people would ask me, like, you just started an online business before anybody else was doing it. And I'm like, the good news is like I hadn't seen anybody fail. Like it was brand new. I was like, why would I not do this? Like, get on camera. Where's the camera? Like my dad always used to say, like, Andrea never met a camera she didn't like. So it's like a lot of that is like my natural, just like razzle dazzle.
Yeah.
The kind of funny and ironic part is that, I grew up in a family, kind of traditional, like Gen X. Nobody talked about their feelings.
Mm.
They made fun of them, called therapists head shrinks. So it was not welcomed. And I also was a child who deeply, deeply at my core wanted to talk about hard things, but didn't even know what to name what that was. Like I could see the elephants in the room and wanted to name them. And so as I started doing my work, and in 2014, I went to San Antonio, Texas, and got certified in the methodology of Brene Brown. And it was all about vulnerability and shame. And, when you were talking about that, like the whole concept of people feeling not okay, to me, and what my work points to is that feeling of not being okay, that feeling of worrying and wanting a relationship to complete you and all of these things is the fear of uncertainty, is the discomfort of not knowing what the future holds for you, not knowing if whatever obstacles are in front of you, whether they're tomorrow or a year out, am I going to be able to handle those? And that uncertainty is the thing that just fuels our anxiety and our insomnia and things like that. So, really being trained on and facilitating vulnerability work, as well as, which makes me laugh. Like, if you would have asked me 20 years ago if I would be certified and bring people through shame, like working on shame, I'd be like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm a hype girl. Like, we don't talk about that. We move right around that. But it really is about shame, because at the end of the day, what we're all worried about when we are nervous about sharing our art or asking someone on a first date or asking our new partner to be exclusive with us, we're worried about shame. And it's unconscious largely. But it drives all of our behaviors. It drives perfectionism, people pleasing, poor boundaries, isolation, numbing out. It drives it. So for me, in my personal work and then in my professional work, once I could see it, I was like, oh, there you are. It's shame. I could start talking about it like on podcasts with my friends, and it made it a little bit less scary. Like, it's still potent to me when I experience it, but I have the confidence and resilience to know, like, I can walk through shame. Is it going to be terrible? Sure is. Am I
Yeah.
going to do it? Sure am, because I've done it before. So that's kind of like, I just distilled down like the work that I do.
Beautiful. You're
Thanks.
really, really inspiring. I'm like very inspired right now by everything about you. You've openly talked about overcoming alcoholism and living with anxiety, which is so interesting because you seem so grounded and calm, but I
Mhm.
imagine it's taken a lot of work, and also infidelity. How did those experiences shape your perspective on resilience? And how were you able to really just pick yourself up and
Yeah.
keep going? Because a lot of people break from any one of those things.
So such a good question. And if you would have asked me this like a few years ago, I might have answered it differently. But what I'm realizing now, as I've come, I think, completely full circle, in 2006, God, it's coming up on 20 years, when I found out that my first husband, and a man I'd been with since I was 17, had had an affair with our neighbor and got her pregnant. And this was right when we had planned on conceiving our first child. We'd been together for 13 years. And we were married. And then all of a sudden he's having a baby with a woman across the street that he told me that he's in love with. And that was the most profoundly impactful and traumatizing. That trauma lived inside of me for many, many, many years. And so my ability to come full circle, if I could not be so verbose in my answer, is learning how to feel my feelings, because this is also linked to quitting drinking. And my drinking was just a symptom. My eating disorder was just a symptom of a bigger problem that I had. And that was that I was terrified, absolutely terrified to feel my feelings, to drop in to the immense humiliation that I felt when everything came out about his 7-month long affair, the shame that I felt about over drinking as a mother of two toddlers and having to like come out publicly and say, I have a legitimate drinking problem, to come out and talk about the behaviors that I used to do when I was symptomatic in my eating disorder. I thought that if I opened up Pandora's box, I would never stop crying. I really believed that it might kill me. I'm like, is there evidence that anyone has ever died from feeling their
Right.
feelings? And it's such a lonely place to be. So now I call there are 4 emotions that I call the holy emotions, and they're shame, terror, grief, and how am I forgetting the fourth one right now? Shame, terror, grief, and the fourth one will come to me in a minute. But they're like these profound emotions that most of us avoid at all costs. And they ironically became the things that were incredibly healing to me. And so it was a long journey, but somehow I made it.
What you're saying rings so true, especially for me as somebody who was sometimes still can be emotionally avoidant, dissociate from my feelings. There's almost this fear like if I go in there, it's just this black hole that's going to swallow me up, and that's going to be my new home. This big black box of
Never
darkness that
recover.
I'm never going to get out of. And once you do allow those feelings to come in, It's brutal. I
Yeah.
remember having that experience where it came after a time where I thought my life was great because I had been working. I wrote my first ebook and I was busy, 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 living in New York City, bopping from this to this to this, like trying to make my career happen. And then I decided to do some traveling and just like kind of get my head together. And once I was away from all the noise, all these horrible feelings started coming up. And I was like,
Mhm.
where are these coming from? And it was crippling. And then I did a lot of work on myself, energy healing, all different types of therapy, hypnosis, like regular therapy. And I took like a basically like a year sabbatical just to like get myself, I mean, I was still working the whole time. I unfortunately worked for myself, but just to get myself together. But I will never forget that feeling of like this tsunami of negative emotions coming at me. And it's because I had never really faced them. And I think that a big part of the problem today is that there's no room to feel your feelings. Like, remember boredom? Remember that used to exist? Remember,
Right.
like, you would go to the bank and stand online and had nothing to do. It's just you and your thoughts, or like the grocery store. Like, remember quiet? That doesn't exist. We all have computers in our pockets, and it's just, okay, you're online, scroll, 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 scroll. There is no place to feel or think. We're just constantly running. I have clients I work with who are, if they don't have plans for the weekend by like Wednesday, they start to panic because the thought of just being alone, it terrifies them. They have to just be out and pushing themselves. And they're like, why am I so exhausted? It's like, just stay in and
Yeah.
be. And that's just too overwhelming for them. And so this is so important. And it sounds simple. Okay, feel your feelings. But very few people, especially people who are really suffering, it's because they're probably not doing that. And then that
I
leads to
agree.
disease, autoimmune disease. I mean, which primarily, same here, which primarily affects women. I don't really know what the numbers are, but overwhelmingly, it's women who have all the autoimmune diseases, which is really just crap negative emotions. The body keeps the score. The body remembers. It all lives in you.
Yeah, everything, yes, to what you just said, and rage is the fourth one, which is my favorite.
Rage.
I can't believe I forgot that one. It's the one that sits,
I
like,
was
the
trying to
two of the
guess. I thought
circles.
hopelessness, but rage makes sense.
Rage. I think that women have an easier time dropping into hopelessness than they do any of those 4. No, I agree with you, and it makes me sad too for, for I'm raising 2 teenagers right now in Generation Z, and just how they don't, like, boredom has never been in really something that they've had to grab onto. The thing with feelings and emotions, I don't call any of them negative or positive. Sometimes I might refer to them as like heavier, because our culture has taught us that, and it's just dichotomous, like we like polarities because it's certainty, like this is
Yeah.
good and this is bad. But once I started, one of my one of my dear friends, Amy Smith, like, the first few months I got sober, I had some experience that happened in my life where
It's okay.
where something hard happened, and I was sober, and I was crying on the phone with her, and she asked me, she's like, is this like the first time you've ever experienced a difficult time in your life without drinking? And I was like, through tears, I'm like, yes. So she gave me this perspective in terms of feelings, because I was in my feels and I was like a cat trying to climb out of a bathtub, just like, get me out of here. And she said, what if you looked at feelings as just your body's way of taking care of itself? It's like, we don't get upset with ourselves if we have to clear our throat or throw up or sweat when we have a fever. Like, our body is always trying to get back to homeostasis. And I love that. Like, my degree is in exercise physiology. I love, if you're going to talk to me about how the human body works, tell me more. It's just sexy talk to me. So what if I looked at feelings like that? It's just your body's way of processing emotions, and it makes you have an experience that is not your norm. It's not your homeostasis. What if it was just that simple? Could you feel differently about feelings if you looked at that through that perspective? And I was like, okay, you're brilliant. And that's what I started doing. And when I started doing that, it was easier for me to be able to walk through shame, terror, rage, grief. And yes, it was profoundly uncomfortable, but it was, if I looked at it from that perspective, it is now amazing to me. So it's 2025 now. I mentioned I'm in a new relationship, and one of the feedback that my partner gave me, he said, I've never met someone who has the ability to move through emotions as quickly as you do. And he's like, I
Compliment.
watch you go in like a complete circle with something, and then you're back to normal. And I was like, yeah, this hasn't always been the case for me, but it really truly is. Like, if I just open the door and
Mhm.
let them in, they don't wear out their welcome. They
Yeah.
truly don't. They're just like, they come in and like make the bed, leave. Like it
Right.
really is profound.
So true. And people don't realize that if you just allow the emotion, it will peak like a wave. It will peak and then it will crash and it'll be gone. If
Yeah.
you fight against it, it's still there and it will demand to be heard. And so you can keep stuffing it down, but it's going to keep trying to find its way. And it's probably going to come exploding out of you at a very inopportune time. One little
Mhm.
thing will set you off. And then all of a sudden you're full of rage. And you're like, why am I so full of rage over this little thing? It's not the little thing. It's that you weren't allowing yourself to feel the emotion when you needed to feel it. And it has to be heard. Emotions will demand to be felt. You can't ignore them. You can't outrun the cloud. You can try. You're just going to exhaust yourself in the process.
Yeah. I use the metaphor like you can't bury your emotions alive and expect them to die.
Ooh, I like
I
that.
don't remember which book I wrote that in. But I also, in one of the modules I do in the Brene Brown methodology, we call it offloading emotions. And there's 6 ways that people tend to do this. For women, it tends to be the pushing down and like we collect them over time. And then how they come out is usually passive aggressive.
Hmm.
It's the I'm fine and that kind of behavior. But mostly for women, where it comes out is physical problems. So this is insomnia, anxiety, depression, autoimmune. I know that was the case for me. And yeah, that's a whole nother conversation as well, offloading emotions.
Okay, we'll have to have a part 2 for that.
We can. Part 2 and 3.
Yes. So I want to talk to you about how to stop feeling like shit, your book,
Yes. I
or
have
just
it
the
right
concept.
here, luckily, in case I need to reference.
Amazing. Why do you think so many people, especially women, feel like shit even when on paper everything seems great?
Yeah.
What's underlying that?
Well, the title came from actually conversations that I had had over and over again with women. And so I was seeing, I had my practice for a while and I was starting to see patterns of the behaviors that women were coming to me for. And it was ones that I've mentioned: perfectionism, people pleasing, isolation, numbing out, overachieving a lot, control was a big one. And the way I would talk to them about it is I would say, these behaviors have worked for you for a while. There's a saying, there's many really great expressions in the rooms of recovery from 12-step meetings. And one of them is, it works until it doesn't. And that's what I
Mhm.
would say about these behaviors. Like, they have worked for you. I say, control and perfectionism helped me graduate from college with honors. And then you get to a point in your life where they stop working.
Yeah.
And that feels like shit. And then you can't figure out, it usually happens somewhere around midlife for women, but it can happen earlier, where something is wrong. You're in your own way, but you're not sure what it is. And symptomatically, I can find it in your behaviors. And then we dig around deeper and see where it stemmed from and see how you're handling your emotions, see how you're chronically self-abandoning is what it is like that shitty feeling is the person walking away from themselves over and over and over again in order to walk towards someone else. The chronic self-abandoning in order to put other people's feelings, convenience, goals, lives before their own. It catches up with us eventually. And then they end up in my inbox, not knowing what's wrong.
So your book covers 14 habits that hold
Mhm.
us back. What would you say the sneakiest habit that most of us don't even realize we're doing?
That's a good one. I don't know if I've ever been asked that in the
Hmm.
many, many, many interviews I've been on this for the show. The sneakiest one that they don't realize that they're doing. I think it's maybe numbing out, but not necessarily with a substance like drinking. I mean, sometimes that's obvious for people, or eating or restricting calories. Many times it's more so numbing out by avoiding.
Right.
So it's avoiding problems, it's avoiding hard conversations, it's avoiding really anything. I think that like we are so overstimulated as a society. I also am a firm believer that as a human species, we were not meant to take in all of the incredibly difficult things it is to take in, just the way the news works and how connected we all are on social media. Um, and it's overwhelming our systems. And so that playing in the background, plus like, our jobs and the fact that we're not meant to sit in a chair for 8 hours. Like I cry and tell people like, I was meant to run through a meadow. Like, I think that contributes to the fact that we avoid anything uncomfortable. And it's like, honey, I don't blame you. I do the same thing. And so it's really about the solution is about trying to find ways that work for you that don't further overwhelm your system. Because I see a lot of people in burnout too. Like I myself have been there more than once.
Same.
So it was kind of a long way of answering your question of what I see is avoiding.
Avoiding. What's the most common thing that you see in terms of like these habits that hold us back and make us feel like shit? Like what's the number one?
It's the self-abandonment. And I know that's it's an umbrella really for all of them, but when it comes down to it, it is that. And the solution comes down to something you said earlier, and it's about self-trust. And I think self-trust is a term that gets thrown around like most things in personal growth, where we don't actually know what that means or looks like because we've never experienced it.
Yeah. That is another interesting point. I mean, in terms of terms getting thrown around,
Yeah.
I think that it's good that so much the fact that these concepts are even being discussed. Because when I started, it's funny, like we do really have parallel journeys. When I started, again, I started my blog in 2009, so that wasn't even a thing. It
It
wasn't
was like
even
the
like
dark ages.
right. But nobody was talking about anything. And all I wanted was like when I was going through my heartache and when I was feeling miserable, I wanted someone to tell me I was going to be okay. I'm like, I want someone to explain it to me. And so what I leaned on was like Sex in the City. So if I was going through a breakup, I would rewatch that episode where Berger breaks up with Carrie on a post-it just to feel seen and understood. But none of this stuff about shame and inner child. I remember when a friend of mine who also happened to be a therapist gave me this book called The Child Within, and it was all about the shame we carry from our childhoods. I had never heard of this before. I didn't know that I was still affected by my childhood. So I think that it's amazing that there's so much awareness. But do you think it's a little too much? Is it
100%.
too much? Is it too many people like explaining concepts wrong? Too many voices? Too much like, and is it too much pathologizing everything? Like we're labeling everything these days.
Yeah.
What's your take on it? Especially like from someone who started when there were no voices to now
Right.
there's just so many voices. I didn't even realize till I started promoting this book because like I kind of like, I have the select people that I follow, but then when I started looking into like, all right, what relationship podcast? I'm like, oh my God, there are 40 million trillion. Like there's
Yeah.
so much.
The metamorphosis that the industry has gone through has been, I have mixed feelings about it. Like, I think it's amazing that people have access for free to help, like, which didn't
Mhm.
exist when you and I first started. And also, I, of course, have like my beef with it. One is I call it the miniaturization of personal growth, where for marketing purposes, we have to fit something on a meme in order to make a point or to talk about it all the way through. We're also, our attention span is so short, like many times we're not going to listen to the whole thing. And I think that that can be harmful and detrimental. And again, this goes back to like, we are overstimulated, we are bombarded. And so remind me what the question was, or did you want me to just rant about it? Because I
You can
can.
just rant about it. I mean, the question was really like your thoughts on so many voices in the space and
Yeah.
just kind of labeling everything.
Yeah.
Everything needs a diagnosis. Everything needs a label. Every guy who's not interested is a narcissist.
Oh
Every,
gosh.
suppressed emotion is, oh, I'm an avoidant, or it's like we're always trying to figure ourselves out instead of just
Right.
be. We just have to figure it all out, diagnose everything.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for bringing me back home. So I agree with you on all of those points, and I think that pathologization, the pathology, can be super helpful.
Yeah.
100% can be helpful, and at the same time, we're also meaning-making creatures. Like we're as humans, like we want to make sense of things. We want to make things meaningful, and so I don't want anyone to feel bad for that. And at the same time, I think if I can give anyone advice about it is take a break, like take a detox break. I have done that too. And that's really difficult as someone who's supposed to be on social media, posting all the time. And for me, it's about, okay, I need to take this one concept. And so for me, I'll give you an example. For me right now, so for the longest time, I had an incredibly difficult time with any kind of somatic work. I very much loved staying all up here in my head. I think that's why I loved Brene Brown's work because she's a social worker and she, there are things that I can read about and think about and talk about. Am I going to feel them? Probably not. Maybe later, but I don't know. And so when I got my autoimmune diagnosis after 18 months of trying to figure out what was wrong with me, being diagnosed with depression, the depression medication isn't work. Maybe you're just treatment resistant. Maybe that's not what I have. So finally getting a diagnosis, what I realized, my body was telling me something and I needed to listen. And so I hired a therapist and told her, I have this trauma that happened many, many years ago, and I feel like I can't land the plane. I think that it is time for me to do more somatic work. Can you help me? And I was very clear, like, this is not something I'm used to. I don't even like yoga. I can't meditate. That's the kind of human that I am. I run way up here, anxiety, all the things. And so once she helped me, and then I started to actually make the connection between my doing exercises where I could feel energy moving in my body, scared the crap out of me, Sabrina. I was like, what is this feeling that's happening? Like I could feel it moving. And fast forward now several years, like I'm having like the most profound somatic trauma releases and Kundalini energy rising, and still I am like talking to Chat GPT, having whole conversations, trying to disprove it. I'm trying to be like, this can't be happening. I am such a skeptic with things like that. And so I tell this story as an example of sometimes it can be enormously helpful and profoundly a learning experience for you to just trust your intuition. Is it similar to me where you think like maybe there's something to this mind body connection? Maybe there's something to somatic therapies. Or maybe it's you kind of resonate but you're afraid around our conversation about inner child work. Or maybe it's like about detachment. Like take one thing and run with it. And even if it's like you look that up on social media and follow a bunch of creators that just talk about that one thing, like that's what I encourage people to do, because I think that we're so bombarded with so many different pathologies and options for healing and come to this retreat. And some of them might be really amazing, but you can't find a solution to something if you are scattered and spread out all the time. It's going to be incredibly difficult.
Yes, absolutely. And also, what is Kundalini energy?
Oh my
What
God.
did you say?
Kundalini
That sounds
rising.
cool. What is that?
It's like it's life. Goes way beyond our country, and
Okay.
it's life force energy that lives at the base of our spine, and it's symbolized as a snake. And some people train for years and years and years to have a Kundalini awakening, and it's where the energy awakens and moves up and through your body and up through all seven chakras. And like I was not a chakra person, and I'm like, that's cool, that's cute. No, it's real apparently, and
This stuff is
sometimes
all real. I am not woo woo. I'm very grounded. I am all about like, yes, the chakras, the crystals, the emotions trap, just because I've done like breathwork classes. I've also worked with this energy healer she like did massage therapy basically. So you're getting a massage, but she's releasing the emotions. So she'll like touch a part of my body and she's like, when you were 5 years old, and she'll describe an experience so vividly. I'm like, yes. Like, and it's like, oh, this is stored here. This is stored here. So yes, I'm all about the chakras and I never heard of this Kundalini. I'm going to look into this, like whatever's living at the base of your spine. Absolutely. There is absolutely a mind body connection. Emotions live in the body. There's so much that like we just can't explain. Like I don't think that like you could find it under a microscope. Like if the scientists look for it, like, oh, let's look, oh, there's the anger. No, you can't find it, but they're there. And
what
yes,
a gift, like as women. Here's the thing too that sort of blew me away when I started looking into this is as women, what a gift it is that we were given a womb, a place where literally like life can form, whether you
totally
choose to
cool.
have children or not, whether it is in the cards for you or not. It is a gift to be able to have this energetic connection to the universe. And like, this is when I tell you, Sabrina, and everyone listening to this, when I used to hear people talk about this, I would eye roll, I would change a channel, I would be like, this chick talking about woo woo stuff. I was afraid of it. Honestly, I would hear it calling out to me and I didn't understand it. I couldn't see it. I couldn't measure it. So to me, it doesn't exist. And I think that really my fear of it was because of all those things. Couldn't see it, couldn't measure it. So I knew that it was so much bigger than I was. I was also raised in the church. I grew up Lutheran, but also walked away from that. And so I didn't really have a grasp of spirituality anymore. And I kind of knew intuitively, like, I'm going to go down that path eventually. And so here I am. But like Kundalini truly is, and I know very little about it, but it's that female life force energy. It's creation. It's truly creation. And that's another thing about emotions too, is that emotions are just life in motion. And what if we
Mhm.
could just look at it like that? Like life is moving within us through our emotions. I was like, oh my gosh, well, that's easier to swallow if I look at it that way.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Okay, so if someone listening feels stuck in a rut right now, what's the very first step you have them take to shift out of it?
Stuck in a rut, I am going to tell them to slow down. And so that might mean journaling, even if they just rolled their eyes at me. Because same, I have wanted to not journal so many times, even if it's just a sentence. Going
Same.
on walks with no podcast in your ears.
Yeah.
Music is fine, preferably silent, but go on walks and look at the trees. Like, don't have your face in your phone while you're on a walk. Go look at the trees, just anything that you can do to slow your mind down, because that's when you'll start to hear your inner voice hinting and whispering at you in terms of what is the next step for you. That's the first step of self trust.
That's so interesting. I mean, I've been stuck in many a rut in my life, and my instinct is always do more, get out of this, you know?
Yeah.
Instead, you got to do less and pull back. I always have a really hard time with that. I always feel like, oh, you're just taking the easy way out. You're just being lazy, slowing down. But
No,
I
you
do,
have
at
to.
least at this point, I've done enough work to recognize, like, okay, no, that is just my trauma talking. That is just my feeling that I am only worthy if I am doing and
Right.
all the things.
Right. Exactly. Same.
This has been so incredible. Honestly, I love talking to you. I could talk to you all day. I have a few rapid fire questions for you before we close, even though I feel like we need to have another, like a part two
We
of them.
do. I'm happy to come back on. Yes.
I know. And I need to read all your books first, and then we're gonna like dive into all of
Yeah. Then
them.
you're going to come on my show. So it's amazing.
Yes. Okay. Let's do some rapid fire.
Okay.
What is one confidence practice you swear by?
Visualization.
Yes, same. What is one book that changed your life? And it's okay if you list one of your books.
Don't Sweat the Small Stuff by Richard Carlson. Read it in the early 90s.
What is a quote or mantra you come back to when things get tough?
So many. I mean, like, honestly, that just, I am a child of the universe, and like the universe has so much intelligence, and so do I, because I'm made of it.
I like that. What is a recent make some noise moment in your own life?
Getting divorced and having to have some hard conversations and make some hard decisions.
And what is one thing you wish women would stop apologizing for?
Their inherent place on earth.
Beautiful. Now, share where everyone can find you, how they can work with you, plug yourself, all the things.
Probably the best way is my podcast, also called Make Some Noise. And I'm at AndreaOwen.com. All my services are there.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. It was incredible speaking to you. And I look forward
Thank
to
you.
being on your podcast next week.
Yay!
Right? Next
Very
week.
soon. Yeah, very soon. And everybody, thank you for listening. I know your time is very valuable, so I'm grateful.
Yes. Thank you for listening. Please rate, review, and share this with a friend who needs to hear it. And I will see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Okay, I got to go. I have a client.